and in this episode we will look into some image editing in AfterShot Pro, RAW editing of course, and today's image is this one of the moon rising directly, or actually descending directly above the cable station on Table Mountain, where I, by the way, was last weekend. So if you are interested in seeing what happened there, check my Hike by Shootings playlist, a series of short trips that you can follow, where you can follow me around when I'm taking pictures, and you learn a little bit about Cape Town and its area and some of the funny things and interesting things that we have here, including baboons and pretty severe weather on Table Mountain, I have to say. So if you want to take a look at those short videos, do that after this video or now and then come back. Up to you. Hope you enjoy them. So this one was shot on a Canon EOS 1200D and using a 300mm lens from quite far away on a sadly pretty hazy day. So I underexposed this image to not have the haze kind of be even more prominent and blow out some of the grayish areas on the mountain here. And what I'll do in this video is try to save this. I know there's quite a bit of sensor dust because that was my old Canon EOS 1200D in its last days. And so there's quite a bit to fix here. It's an interesting shot. I love the simplicity of it, but it can be even simpler and I think better. Apart from the obvious low contrast and all of the rest. So what I want to go into first is the noise reduction here in AfterShot. And when you zoom in, you can see we have quite a bit of luminance and color noise due to the underexposure. And I think it was shot in ISO 200. Yes, ISO rating 200. So even on a cropped sensor lens like the EOS 1200D, you have to underexpose quite a bit to get this amount of noise. So let's get rid of that first. And AfterShot has some really great plugins for that. I mentioned those in an earlier video. And I try to get rid of the luminance and the color noise. That already looks pretty good. I don't want to overdo it because the mountain already has quite, due to the haze, not that much detail and sharpness, but that worked quite well. For comparison, let's do that again. This is before noise removal, and this is after noise removal. So as I mentioned in an earlier video, the noise reduction in AfterShot Pro is very good and adjustable, but even in Coral PaintShop Pro, the noise reduction is also very good. Just not as adjustable as it is in here, but it can help quite a bit without losing too much detail. So let's take a look at what we can do next. I would say the histogram needs to be seriously fixed. So let's stretch it out a little bit, but not too much. I think we can add a little bit here and shift it around. And then I move the grays a little bit towards the darker side of the spectrum because the sky was way too bright. This already looks a lot better. Still a long way to go. Let's check the lens correction briefly. I don't use that. I don't use that. And let's enable the lens correction. So we have a couple of presets for lenses here already. And The lens that I used here, the Canon EF 70 to 300 millimeter, is actually a quite reliable lens with only a little bit distortion at 300 millimeter. And yeah, there was not much to do, so that worked. And the chromatic aberration at 300 millimeter is super low, especially in the higher aperture ranges like f11, f8 and f11 and higher. So let's take a look at what we could do to the cropping, because I do not like the part at the bottom here. That is too distracting, and I want this image to be very simple. So let's use the cropping tool. I actually also want to get rid of that hump down here. Do I? Without? Yeah, I think this is better without that little extension at the bottom. Makes the whole thing look steeper below the cable station. And then I move it over because I want the moon and the cable station at the top of Table Mountain right at the center, like a through line. In images like this, quite frankly, the rule of thirds is definitely overrated. And we are done with the cropping. So that looks already a lot better. And then next steps. Let's try to improve the contrast here a little bit. I'll get the lower mid grays a little bit darker to get more contrast on the rocks here. And then let me try if I can increase the highlights a little bit. Not on the moon. I will probably have to fix that in a different way. I want the moon to stand out a little bit more. But speaking of more detail and contrast, the more I enhance the contrast, you can see that the sensor dust becomes visible. But that's not a problem because we have a pretty cool and effective blemish remover here that works like a charm actually. So you place, and especially on a simple background like this, that sensor dust removal shouldn't be a problem. And I'm pretty aware of how much sensor dust this old camera had. I don't have it anymore, sadly. I cleaned it a little bit before I got the Canon 7D, and it got a lot better. But still, the camera was around, I would say, almost six years old at that point, and then at some time the sensors are not really. No. You can. I don't need you. Double click there by accident. There is another one. Okay. Let's check if we can find a few more. Usually I have some here at the top. I mean, I know at the top here. Yeah, here we go. Let's add a new one. Just quickly. That should fix that. Let's see if we can find a few more. This looks okay. There's one. Right underneath. I didn't get this to work properly. Let's move this one over. Yeah, that's better. Okay, that should be that. Let's close that, go back to the main layer, out of the adjustment layer. And let's see what we can do about the moon. I mean, I like this already. This is getting close to where I wanted it to be, what I had in mind when I took the shot. And then maybe let's try if we can make the moon pop a little bit more. Let's add an adjustment layer. So it's not just blemish, but you can also use adjustment layers here, which then allow you to mark a certain area and work on that. That was pretty close to where I needed it. That is cool. A slight feather, that's okay. Maybe go a little bit smaller and add a little bit more feather. Where's the feather? It should be okay. I don't want the moon to have a lot of a very sharp outline. That would look unnatural. So adjustment layer. And now we have a completely different set of settings that we can use. Not settings, but not tools, but the settings have been set to very default 0 values all across the board. And now we can see how we can use the adjustment layer to increase certain aspects of this particular region a little bit. Let's increase the contrast, not too much. And increase the let's set it to 50 and go from there. That could be too strong already. Let's see. Yeah, okay. I think that works for me. Too much would make it look unnatural. I know a lot of photographers like this kind of overstyled look, especially when you're posting on Instagram. It seems to be something that is what people are quite fond of. I don't like it. I like a more natural approach to my images. But that is up to any photographer. I mean, those are our photos. This is our art. This is how we express ourselves, and how we want to show people what the world around us looks like in our view, evoke certain reactions and feelings. So that is entirely up to the individual photographer. So I just prefer a more natural look in my images. Let's see if we can work with the blue a little bit by changing the luminance. As far as I remember, this image was more on the blue than the. Yeah, first go back to the main layer before you change anything, because otherwise you only reduce the cyan a little bit. Or do I actually decrease the blues? Let's see if when I overdo it. Yeah, okay, no, that doesn't work for me. The cyan, that is actually not too bad. The luminance in the cyan can actually be removed quite a bit. And then let's see what happens if I add a bit more. Yeah, that makes the moon come out a little bit more. And if I increase the cyan vibrancy, it makes the moon look a bit more realistic even. That looks a lot better already. Good. I mean, yeah, I'm sure if you don't know that that cable station is the cable station, it looks like on purpose, like a natural part of the mountain. But if you zoom in, you can actually tell that it is a real structure that has been built on top of the mountain there. Yeah, the haziness is pretty much gone now. You will always kind of see like blurry outlines because of the haze, no matter what you do. But that worked quite nicely. So the other thing I can do is try to do a little bit of wavelet sharpen to get some more detail out of the mountain and the texture that I have on it. This can be a bit strong, but I think on this one, due to the haze, it actually adds more than, yeah, because now as you can see, like these outlines and the highlights due to the sunlight pop a little bit more and make it look more like an artificial structure that it is. And it's a nice contrast between the artificial element on the rock face and then the moon kind of hovering above it. And yeah, I think that's it. I think I'll leave it at that. I like the contrast, the very soft aerial celestial kind of body, and then this really jagged, um, rough looking surface on the bottom. It looks a little bit unreal altogether, so I love it. Good. So yeah, I hope you got something out of it. As I mentioned, check out the playlist about the hike by shootings and some other photography beginner tutorials where I use AfterShot Pro and why I use AfterShot Pro. If you like it, if this helps you, like, subscribe, share, hit the bell button, and watch the other videos. Leave comments. Let's talk about photography as much as we can in our spare time. Okay, have a lovely day and hopefully see you in the next video.